So every year, twice a year, for enough years that somebody would be thinking about driving at this point if this thing was a human being, I've gone to an event at the Riverside Drive-In in Vandergrift, Pennsylvania, a drive-in super monster-rama. It is 2 days of 4 movies a night, retro vintage horror films, often on film, sometimes not, including vintage snack bar ads and trailers, and I've always called it horror heaven on earth. It's a wonderful place to be. It's some of my best friends I see there, some people I consider very good friends that I only see once or twice a year at these events. And I was very much looking forward to going in April for an event they call April Ghouls, which was something that started after they've been doing it a few years. They added an April show. The September shows tend to skew, think Hammer, Amicus, 70s, 60s, 70s vintage films. The April Ghouls show tends to be more 70s, 80s, a little harder edged stuff. And I was really looking forward to it this year because I just love the event. The movies are great, the people are great, the drive-in is great. It's just wonderful. And then the world happened and they had to cancel the event, unfortunately. But what my friends did in lieu of having an event where we all got together in person is they came up with a virtual stay-at-home version of Monster-rama. And the last couple of weeks they did that. Basically the guys would, George Reese, who's the owner, writer for DVDDriveIn.com, and the person who came up with April Ghouls, Gene Caruso, who's his PR field operative, man about town, and Bill Van Ryn, who does the Drive-In Asylum fanzine. All great guys who we see at these events. They all got together live on Facebook and basically would chit-chat and introduce the film. Anybody who wanted to could follow along and type along and comment, and they would interact with us that way. And then they just provided links for movies that were available free to stream, the kind of movies that would be at Monster-rama, not the ones they had planned to run. And then you would watch that, and then between the movies during intermission, we would talk a little bit more. And it was like going to the drive-in. It was like we all socialized before the movie, we socialized between the movies, and we socialized after the movies. So one of the films that they ran was from 1973, entitled Invasion of the Bee-Girls. This is a film that I first saw on Boston's WLVI, Channel 56, late one night, heavily edited because this is a very R-rated film. And it's wonderful and sleazy and silly and all those things that make me smile. This stars William Smith as somebody investigating a series of murders in a small California town where men are basically pleasured to death. They are found mouth agape, very, very pale, and they came and went at the same time. So this is a very silly film. It feels sort of like a riff on 50s movies, like Invasion of the Star Creatures or something like that. And it stars, as I said, William Smith, some familiar faces from the 70s, Anita Ford, who was in some other films like Messiah of Evil, and she was one of Barker's beauties early on in the days of Bob Barker's run on Price is Right. And no major names, but at any rate. So basically, the men are dying. We're wondering how and why. It seems to be sexually transmitted or related, and it all leads back to this group of women who wear very large, very 70s sunglasses and are very amorous. Amorous toward men that you normally wouldn't be getting that kind of attention. So the film is very funny, very silly. It is not taking it plays it straight most of the time, but it knows that it's a silly concept and funny. And you get these women, you get the women's point of view when they're approaching one of their targets, and it's like The Fly. It's all the little different lenses and images, and you hear this buzzing effect. And for a while, the film keeps it a secret as to who's doing this and why. Eventually, it lays it all bare. Literally, it was the 70s. And then you see both sides. You see Smith pursuing these women and trying to figure out how to stop them and who's doing it. And then you see Ford and her women going after these guys and just laying waste to them. Also stars Victoria Vetri, a.k.a. Angela Dorian, who had been in When Dinosaurs Ruled the Earth and some Hammer films at that time. I think this may have been her last acting role. It's just a fun, silly movie. It's sleazy. It's available uncut on YouTube, which is how I watched it. I think it's also on archive.org if you want to see it that way. There is a Blu-ray available. There was a DVD available from MGM when they were doing their Midnight Movie series, so it's not hard to get your hands on this. It was considered by some to be public domain for a while. I'm not sure it ever really was, but that's, I think, what allows it to be on these various websites. I think it's actually owned by MGM. when I was doing my old horror host show, Saturday Fright Special, years ago, we ran B-Girls because we believed it to be public domain, but after we did a little bit of research, we found out it really kind of wasn't, and we pulled that from circulation, so it became one of our lost episodes. So I'm always a little weird when I see a movie like that on YouTube for free, because somebody actually does own it. It really shouldn't be there. I'm telling you all that to say, if you want to watch Invasion of the B-Girls and not pay for it, it is on YouTube and on archive.org. So, who would like this movie? Reprobates probably would like this movie. People who find the 70s pleasing or nostalgic or just funny. People who are looking to see a little skin. Somebody who wants to see William Smith beat some people up. There's just a strange process by which an average woman becomes one of the B-Girls, and we see that in great detail. And it's funny. It tackles sort of the women's liberation movement of the time. Sexual politics and freedom and fun, and it is very, very, it is very 1973. Let's put it that way. So this is just me talking about a movie I watched, and if you like the kind of goofy stuff that I like, I will recommend Invasion of the B-Girls. Oh, and one more thing. It was written by Nicholas Meyer, who went on to do such things as, I believe, Time After Time, but definitely Star Trek II.